This video is going to be a day one guide on the Phoenix, and we're going to go through all the abilities, explaining how they work, some combos that we've learned over using this hero for a couple of hours now, and also the playstyle you want to adopt when you're using this hero. So let's start off with the primary attack first. So first of all, it's a hit scan attack, and it does do critical hits. I do want to mention that. So it basically hits the same at any distance, like I said, because it is hit scan, so that is super powerful in and of itself. Then, as you can see, it puts markers on the enemy. So one attack puts one marker, the second attack puts a second marker, and then the last attack is an explosion, which is a spell field radius. So if there's any enemies near this bot as the explosion took place, they will also get hit with damage and a marker too. So that is pretty crazy. So this bot is slightly too far away for that to be an example, but if it was, the damage radius on this final attack is crazy, and that's why Phoenix is going to be super powerful when it comes to big clusters of enemies. So as you can see here, that explosion is pretty big. Then what I do want to mention is that when you're hitting body shots, you get basically one marker and then two markers for the next one, and then the explosion. If you're hitting headshots, however, you get the full markers straight away. So you want to be aiming for the head so that you don't need to do as many attacks, and you can easily kill a Galacta bot in basically 3 hits, which I think is incredibly powerful. Now, if that was not broken enough, then basically you can also self-heal with this primary attack as well. So once you get to the explosion part, then you can actually self-heal, and as you can see, you don't heal a lot, but it does stack if you kill multiple enemies. So as you can see here, once you get to the part of your attack that is an explosion, then you self-heal. Now, you don't need to actually kill the enemy for this. You need to get to that attack where it explodes on top of them. So as you can see here, explosion, then you're healing up, and then explosion, then you're healing up again. So you can kind of constantly stack this if people are getting healed up as well, which I think is super powerful for keeping yourself alive, and it's going to make the Phoenix one of the best DPS to self-sustain in this game, because that is incredibly powerful. Next up, we've got the secondary attack, which is also pretty complex as well. So first of all, it's kind of a spell field radius. So as you can see here, the radius is about 3 meters from what it looks like to me. We don't have the exact numbers yet until we get the Phoenix on the Marvel Rivals website. But another thing I do want to mention is that this goes in a straight line as well. So as you can see, we've got 3 explosions and kind of in a straight direct line, so you can hit multiple enemies at once. And as you can see, it explodes 3 times as well. So when you do that, it marks the enemy up to the 3 bars. And again, not only that, you can actually slow down enemies with this. So we'll show you this on this Galacta bot right here. So the initial stuns, and then it slows them down for a brief amount of time, and as you can see, it hits multiple enemies in that direct line as we've just shown you there, and you can absolutely shred through enemies with this kind of combo of attacks. So our other ability allows her to teleport, which is about an 8-meter teleport, and it leaves behind a clone. Now, what's important about this clone that it leaves behind is essentially it also does damage as well. So if you're trying to phase through enemies, then you're going to leave a marker on them and you'll deal damage to them as well. Small amount of damage though, I do want to mention that. So as you can see here, we phased through the enemy, done a small amount of damage, and left a marker as well. So everything you do essentially leaves a marker on the enemy, which I think is pretty crazy. But also this just allows you to kind of evade any damage or any fire for a very split second here, which is kind of similar to kind of Star-Lord's flips, if you want to kind of call it that, but a little bit more powerful. Lastly, for our standard abilities, then you've got our flight mode, which allows you to fly for a brief amount of time. She does not have any hovering effects, unfortunately, so you cannot hover and then kind of like shoot down on the enemy, but it does have a charge meter here, so it's very similar to Star-Lord and the way that actually works. So pretty cool for repositioning. And if you didn't already notice, this actually also replenishes your ammo as well, or essentially gives you a reload whilst you're in the flying state. So as you can see here, it's reloading your attack, but if you do start firing when you're flying, it basically cancels your flight. So any attacks or abilities will cancel your flight, other than one ability you can use, which we'll show you right this second, which if you're flying, you ascend, you can actually use the phase ability whilst you're flying, and you can phase through flying heroes or something like that, for example. I think that's pretty cool. When it comes to her standard abilities, then her ultimate as well, as you can see here, the way this works is that you float up into the air, you've got 275 HP, you impact down onto the enemy, and you deal damage with a bit of spell field at the end as well. Now, what you probably also noticed is that you respawn back to where you use the ultimate and not where you've actually detonated the ultimate. So that's something I do want to mention. So you can do that from behind cover, for example. Now, the other thing you can do as well with this is essentially float up into the air, and then you can press the impact button, and you've got 400 HP whilst you're in this state, and you can essentially fly around. As long as you're not impacting any walls, you can actually fly around for the whole entire time until you land an impact. And then again, like I said, you spawn back to where you are. I think this is pretty cool. 20 seconds seems like a very long time to be able to fly around here. Obviously, none of the maps in this game are usually this open. If you do fly out of bounds as well, that will impact you too. But again, this ultimate is pretty powerful, as you can see here, with the amount of damage you can do to enemies and the extra spell field damage that it does afterwards with the explosion as well. So getting into the combos and the kind of advanced tech. So first of all, I want to talk about the melee, because this is actually one of the most powerful melees in the entire game. So as you can see here, when you're melee, you actually get your flame marks as well, and you also get the explosion with your melee attack. So that's something I do want to show you, because this is going to be one of the most powerful melee attacks in the entire game with the amount of damage it does. I've not seen any melee do this kind of damage at all in this game, and I've tested every single one of them for a video. So as you can see here, that's a lot of damage you're dealing to enemies. So if you combo this in with basically your primary and you need to use the melee attack, then definitely do that, as you can do tons and tons of damage. The other obvious combo is the primary and secondary combo. So you use the primary with the secondary, and hopefully you're kind of aiming this in a cluster of enemies, because you want to be trying to impact as many enemies with this as possible. So if enemies are grouped together, it's almost like an Unk in a sense, where you're going to get loads of markers and then you can finish them up with your primary attack. And another combo I think a lot of people will start using as well for this, just for the kind of movement aspect of it, the secondary with the phase. I think both of those just work incredibly well. So as you can see, secondary phasing through the enemy as well to get that extra piece of damage, finish them off with one attack left, which I think could be really good. You can also start off with a primary fire, as you can see here, put down the secondary and then phase through them, and that's going to allow you to kind of be a lot harder to hit as well. Now, in terms of playstyle for Phoenix, there's two playstyles in my opinion you can use this hero. Now, first of all is the sniper style. Now, this is very easy to understand. Basically, you want to sit back almost like a sniper, play her similar to Hela, right? You want to stay in your kind of front line or in your even team's back line and just fire shots down range. Make sure you hit your shots, because they're all hit scan. Make sure you're getting those 1, 2, and 3 shots with the explosive damage as much as you possibly can. That's one way you could play this hero. It works incredibly well, and like I said, because the attacks are hit scan, it works super good. And if the enemies are clustered together, then you're going to get tons of damage. And you just want to make sure you're placing your secondary fire down very accurately and very purposefully. Don't be just spamming it out. You want to place it when enemies are clustered together, or when you're trying to attack an important target. That's when you want to use the secondary fire. And that kind of goes for the second playstyle as well, by the way. But like I said, the first playstyle, player like a sniper, it works incredibly well pretty much all the time. And then you can use the phase ability to kind of dodge attacks if you need to, and use the flight to gain some kind of high ground. That works super well. Now, the other way you can play Phoenix, and my personal preference way to play this hero, is more of a kind of frontline, in your face kind of DPS, right? So very similar to the way you'd maybe want to play a Winter Soldier or something like that. Very forward playing. And the reason why I'm saying that is because that primary fire healing that you get allows you to stay alive a lot longer than some of the other DPS in this game. Now, it's not going to keep you alive all the time, because it's not that much healing you're going to get, but it is enough to keep yourself alive, and we're going to explain how you can use this to keep yourself alive a lot longer. But again, if you use the primary fire, get that explosive damage in, and then also combine this with your melee attack, the melee is super useful with this hero, man. It's probably one of the best melees, if not the best melee, for a ranged hero in the entire game. right? So you want to make sure you use that if you're missing your shots or if you're super close range with someone. Make sure you use it. This is not like a use it if you need it kind of situation. This is a use it and make sure you use it, because of that explosive damage you get on the third strike. It's always going to be useful for you. So please use your melee as often as you can. I think that's going to be something that you need to take away from this video, is use her melee if you need it in that kind of brawl area when you're not hitting your shots. Now, survivability wise, this is how you stay alive with Phoenix. What you want to do is you want to save your dash. So this is the bit, or the kind of shift ability, where you can kind of phase through enemies and you're not able to be hit during that time. Very similar to Star-Lord's flips. This is how you want to use this. So you kind of want to dash through an enemy so that you're appearing behind them. It makes them have to turn around or something along those lines, right? To use it to reposition, that can also be really useful. Now, you're not going to get tons of distance on it, so just keep that in mind. But even if you're just phasing through an enemy, obviously you mark them as well, and also you manage to stay alive if you're taking loads of damage. So that's one way to stay alive. The second way to stay alive, and again another super useful way, is by using her self-healing. Now, the way you want to use this is you want to wait until you've got the burst attack, you start healing yourself up, and then you want to use your flight to get away. So don't just use the flight all the time. It's really not going to help you, because you cannot fire, you cannot do anything during the time of you flying, unless you're playing like a sniper and you want to reposition. But if you're playing kind of very brawly with this hero, or very up close, then what you want to do is wait until you get your self-healing, and then you want to fly away, and that way you can stay alive a lot longer. So make sure you only activate the flight after you've realized that you're self-healing and you can kind of gain some flight. Make sure you get the full heals off and then return to the fight, and that is the way you want to stay alive. Like I said, you want to essentially play around the secondary fire. If that's how you're playing this hero, especially in the up close kind of fights like I mentioned, then you're going to do extremely well, because it's going to allow you to kill multiple enemies, it's going to mark multiple enemies, and it's going to allow you to self-heal a lot more regularly. And that is why the secondary attack's super important. You're essentially playing around your secondary fire. In my opinion, that's the way you want to play this hero pretty much 90% of the time. And then when it comes to the ultimate usage, pretty straightforward here, but you want to pop the ultimate from behind cover and then fly it down into where you want it to be, because when you kind of come back from using your ultimate, you're then already in a safe space. You don't need to try and kind of reposition yourself, try and find somewhere to kind of stay safe, or potentially even die when you've just popped your ultimate out in the open. So make sure you use it from behind cover. You can fly it out to wherever you want to attack the enemies from, and then deal as much damage as you possibly can, and then return to a safe position directly after that. But that is all the tips we have for the Phoenix. If you enjoyed this video and you learned something new, don't forget to subscribe, and thank you very much for watching.